Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girirvara Jari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Rajakacharya Stotar Shata Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ishkan founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Rajakacharya Stotar Shata Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gorkashore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Sachinandana Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Das Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Nantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Haranam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Gurunath Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Ishkan Varma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Pramanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayana Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tito Jayam Yuridayat Nasta Preshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances under the personality of Godhead Narayan, under Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, under Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service under the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, so today is February 4th, 2024, and we are reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Prithu, and we'll be doing verse 25. Okay. Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swatam Evanusu. Let me start over, sorry. It's the yeah. Do it again. Okay. Ta Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanusa Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanansu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanasu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanusu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita. Okay, please chant.
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Swartam Evanasu Yavaha
Swartam Evanusu Yava
Kurudakso Sajadiyas
Kurutadoksha Jadiyas
Tarhi Menugraha Krita
Tarhi Menugraha Krita.
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Swartam Evanasu Yavaha
Swartam Evanusu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita. Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanusu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita. Tat Prajapatir Pindartam Swartam Evanusu Yava Kurutadoksha Jadiyas Tarhi Menugraha Krita.
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Tat Prajapatir Pindartam
Swartam Evanasu Yava
Swartam Evanusu Yava
Kurutadoksha Jadiyas
Kurutadoksha Jadiyas
Tarhi Menugraha Krita.
Tarhi Menugraha Krita. All right, let's do word for word. Tat.
Tat.
Therefore,
Therefore,
Praja,
Raja,
my dear citizens,
my citizens,
Bhartir of the Master,
of
Pinda Artham,
the
welfare after death,
Death,
Swa Artham, own interest, Eva, certainly, Anusuyavaha, without being envious, Kuruta, just execute, Ahokshaja, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Diyaha, thinking of Him, Tarhi, therefore, may, unto me, Unugraha, mercy, Krita, being done. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prithu Maharaj continued, therefore, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and you should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interests, and you will bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after death. Please repeat. Prithu Maharaj continued, therefore, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interests, and you will bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after death. Purport. The word ahokshaja diyaha, meaning Krishna consciousness, are very important in this verse. The king and citizens should both be Krishna conscious. Otherwise, both of them will be doomed to lower species of life after death. A responsible government must teach Krishna consciousness very vigorously for the benefit of all. Without Krishna consciousness, neither the state nor the citizens of the state can be responsible. Prithu Maharaj therefore specifically requested the citizens to act in Krishna consciousness, and he was also very anxious to teach them how to become Krishna conscious. A summary of Krishna consciousness is given in Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Yat karoshi yat ashnasi yat juhoshi darasi yat tapasya teya tat karusva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give in charity, whatever penances you undergo should be done in Krishna consciousness or for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If all the people of the state, including the government servants, are taught the techniques of spiritual life, then although everyone is liable to be punished in different ways by the stringent laws of material nature, they will not be implicated. Om Gyanatamrandasya Gyanajana Shlakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajahan Sahagana Raghanatham Tam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savajutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Rishakamtam Stra He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagapate Gopesha Gopeka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, so this verse talks about duty, especially in terms of Varna and Ashram. And we've been talking about duty and like leadership and the duty of a leader for a long time, for months and months, oh, probably like a year now, off and on. And so we know that the Bhagavad Gita says that it's better to engage in one's own occupation, though imperfectly, than to engage in another's and perform it perfectly. And duties prescribed to according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So, okay, so we think about, so like as Kirtan Yagya said yesterday, the Varnashram system, it consists of different kinds of people. We have the Brahmins, we have the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras, and that's the Varna. And then we have the Ashrams, which are Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. So currently, we do not have a Varnashram system. Currently, we do not have a Varnashram system in place. We're, trying maybe in our very small way to make that happen. But our leaders are not Kshatriyas. And Srila Prabhupada has said that in this yuga, we're all Sudras, right? So what are the different duties of the different classifications? So who can tell me what the duty of a Brahmin is? Kirtaneshwar.
Performing sacrifice, teaching people to perform sacrifice, studying the scriptures, teaching the scriptures, doing deity worship, and engaging others in deity worship.
Okay.
And
And,
we're also the astrologers.
oh, interesting. Very nice. So Lavanga, what is the duty of a Kshatriya?
To protect the citizens, teach them how to engage in their life activities, and to go out and fight in battle.
Good.
Rule administrative rules.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, like they're the leaders. Yeah. Okay, so what is the duty of a Vaishya? Who knows?
Farmers and merchants.
Yeah, farmers and merchants, industry. Yeah, and then how about a Sudra? Who knows the duties of a Sudra? Worker, who said that? Yeah. Whoever said that, right, yeah, they're the workers, the laborers, the craftsmen too. Yeah, they're not, running the business or working in the business.
Entertainers.
Yeah, entertainers. Exactly. So, okay, so we know that those are what the duties of each respective Varna is. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, so my duty here is to serve the temple in whatever capacity is needed, to serve Mother Sandamini, and both those, Mother Sandamini and the temple, are here to serve Krishna, right? And I can't do my service perfectly. I just can't. I mean, like, look, I couldn't even remember the meter, right? Even though I've done it like every day for years now, I couldn't even remember the meter. So, a perfect example of how I cannot do my duty perfectly, right? I'm certainly not perfect at giving classes. But you know what I am good at? What I could do perfectly is I could work, like at McDonald's, and I know I could do that perfectly. I've worked in fast food before, and my boss loved me. Every time the owner was coming by, they'd make sure I was in the front because I was able to, do everything perfectly, keep it all clean, and so does that mean should I quit doing this and go apply at McDonald's? What do you guys think? No? Should technically say no.
Maybe another restaurant.
Yeah, I could go over to Tamarico and get a job there maybe. So that'd be a little better. So yeah, and that's because my duty is to do whatever Mother Sandamini tells me to do and whatever my guru tells me to do, and to serve Krishna in those ways. And in the course of that duty, I actually I do laboring like the Sudras. I do things like giving a class or performing arti or something like that, like a Brahmin. I protect the temple from shoplifters, like a kshatriya, as some of you know that happened recently. And I try to come up with new ways to maybe market things by making ads and stuff like that, kind of like a Vaishya, right? So I do all of those things. And so what does that mean? Because Srila Prabhupada said we're all Sudras, but yet I'm doing kind of work from each one of those different things, those different classifications. So every time we talk about this verse, the Bhagavad Gita verse about it's better to engage in one's own occupation and do it imperfectly than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. I also always think about, there's always these news stories about veterinarians, like performing surgeries on humans, and then they get in trouble, they get arrested. There's and then alternately, just recently in Tucson, there was a doctor, she was an obstetrician, she delivered babies, and she was performing surgeries on animals, on dogs and cats, and she got arrested for that, for animal cruelty. And so these are people that are maybe capable of doing those things, but they shouldn't be doing them because it's not their job. That's not what they should be doing. So what is our duty? Is it, if we're all Sudras, should we just give up trying to give class, do an RT? Should we go start digging ditches or making things, or maybe we could all become dancers or actors or something? Should we do that? I don't think so. I don't think this temple would be able to function if everybody just became an entertainer or a craftsman or something like that. So what is the ultimate duty then of a jiva soul or a human being? Who knows what that ultimate duty is? Yeah, Lavanga. Yeah, devotional service, learning to serve Krishna. So one thing that the one line of this verse I found really interesting, it says, okay, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interests. So I find that interesting because sometimes people will say, I don't have time to, dedicate my life to God. I don't have time. I have so many other things going on in my life. I'll do that later on in my life. Oh, I just can't do that for whatever reason. They have so many reasons why they can't do that. But we know that they're actually working against themselves, because it says right here that you will protect your own interests by doing this. So it's kind of by serving Krishna, even though our goal is to serve Krishna lovingly for no other reason than to love him. Our own interests are also going to be served. It's kind of like the sweet paradox of serving Krishna, is we give everything to Krishna and he gives everything to us, So everyone is Krishna conscious, but we're just covered over by different layers of Maya, right? And so proof of this is that you feel guilty when you do something wrong, right? You do something wrong and you feel guilty. But I think you do something wrong one time and you think, wow, I shouldn't have done that. I feel kind of bad about it. But then maybe you do it again and you don't feel quite as bad, right? You just kind of like feel a little bit bad. Then you do it a third time and you get used to that feeling. You don't feel so bad, right? And then by the time you've done it the fourth or fifth time, it's become normal. You don't feel guilty at all. But everybody has that deep down, that guilt inside. They know when they've done something wrong. And that's because we are all Krishna conscious. We're just covered over by those layers of Maya. So it's a very slippery slope when you decide to maybe do something that makes you feel kind of bad, and you start feeling bad about something that you've done. You should really examine it and realize, why am I feeling this way? What is it that's making me feel this way? Because it's 9 chances out of 10 that there's something that's your way of your soul telling you, hey, wait a minute, that wasn't right. We shouldn't be doing that. I know in my own life, I would have that feeling sometimes because I did something wrong, and I would just ignore it, and say, okay, yeah, I know I feel bad, but I'm getting this result that I want, and then I would keep doing it, and ultimately it never ended up in a good place. So our leaders and our fellow countrymen, we're not God conscious, right? Our leaders are responsible for the actions of its subjects, right? So, the leader takes on the karma of its citizens. If the citizens are doing wrong and they're not showing the citizens how to live properly, they're getting a bad reaction for that. And so I don't know if any of you have ever noticed our US presidents, when they get into office, you can see it on their face. When they get into office versus when they leave office, they look like they've aged about 2 decades in the space of about 4 or 8 years, depending on if they had 1 or 2 terms. So I have this is kind of silly, but I just have this picture of Barack Obama side by side. So you can see here just how much he's aged. Yeah. And it's just amazing. You can see, and he was a 2-term president, that's 8 years. But it really looks like he aged about 20 years. And so that's because our citizens are not following what's that? Yeah, Obama.
It's really shocking, actually.
It is shocking, yeah. Yeah, well, I was going to choose him as well, but I felt like this one was the most dramatic.
We're really glad.
Yeah.
He died his year earlier.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see in other ways too. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I don't think he aged because I don't think he cared about it.
Yeah, that's I was thinking about that this morning, that I didn't see that Donald Trump aged that much, and I didn't know if that was because he spent a lot of time and effort changing his appearance, or.
John Stewart had a joke. When Trump was president, he aged all the rest of us 10 years.
I saw a picture of him yesterday. He's looking pretty old.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's happening. He's aging more when he's out of office, perhaps. And so we can see that. So why would somebody have that dramatic difference in just a few short years? And it's because that leader's taking on the karma of the citizens for not leading them in a proper way. They're showing them how Krishna wants us to live. And again, if that leader had dovetailed his actions with the desires of Krishna, his own interests would have been protected, including, his aging. Although I wouldn't say that this is an anti-aging process, although maybe that'd be good marketing. So we have free will. Like, there's always so much being said about free will. Like, oh, we have free will. So what does that really mean? Do we have the free will to decide, like, oh, I want to be a bird. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna fly over to the U of A.
We're going in that direction.
He's saying, you're like walking the line now.
Oh.
Gratitude will say I'm a woman.
Yeah. So if I said I identify as a bird, is that gonna make me able to fly over to the U of A? It's not. So, at least I don't think so. But do we have the free will to, I want Lavunga to love me, right? I want Lavunga to marry me, right? Do I have the free will to force her to do that? I can make her do that? No, I can't do that. So what does free will mean?
Desire.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, and also free will, we have the free will to choose whether to turn towards Krishna or away from him. And so in one way, that doesn't seem like so much, but in another way, it's everything. I mean, that is everything. We have the free will to either work with Krishna or against him. And so that's where our free will lies. And so, okay, I have a few stories that I want to talk about. So one about when King Pariksit, when he found out he was going to die in 7, what did he do? He went to Sukadeva Goswami and said, please tell me the pastimes of Krishna. Please tell me what I need to know before I'm going to die. Because that is what the duty of a soul is to find out about Krishna, to go get closer to Krishna, to love Krishna. And so I also wanted to tell the story about King Riga. You know this story? So I'm sure a lot of you know this story already. But one day, some of Krishna's kinsmen, they were like walking through the forest and they got really thirsty. So they're like trying to find some water. And they go to this big, like, get them out of there. So they're trying to get the lizard out, and he won't. They're see Krishna, and they tell him, "Hey, we saw this lizard." He goes to the well, and he's able to get the lizard out because he's Krishna, of course. He just gets the lizard out, and when he does, the lizard turns into a beautiful demigod. And Krishna, even though he knows what happened here, he said, "How did this happen to you? How did you get to become a lizard in this well?" And Krishna, of course, did this for the benefit of the others. And he said, well, that he was a king, and he was very charitable, and he was giving away to qualified brahmanas so many cows, like thousands and thousands and thousands of cows. Like, I don't even know how anyone could have that many cows, but he was giving them away. And not only that, the cows were had their horns were gold plated. They had jewels all over them. He was also giving land and gold and wives. I mean, just anything you would possibly need, just all these opulent. And so he gave so many thousands and thousands of cows to so many different brahmanas. And one of the cows decided to just kind of wander back home to where the kings kept the rest of his cows. And so the king, he didn't even know this, and he makes a gift of more cows to another brahmana. And that cow that he had already given to a different brahmana ends up with those cows. And the first brahmana finds out, hey, wait a minute, you gave it. That brahmana says, no, it is mine. And arguing about it. And so they go back to the king. And the king says, oh my gosh, this was an accident. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And look, I'll give you I think he said 100,000 cows. If you just, let him have this cow. And that brahmana was like, no, neither of the brahmanas would take that many, even though they wanted the cow that was originally given to them. And so to take the property of a brahmana is a really grave offense. And so when this king died, he's in front of Yamaraj, and Yamaraj says, okay, do you want to use the the effects of your good karma first or the effects of your bad karma first? And he said, oh, well, I'll take the effects of my bad karma. And so because of this cow accidentally wandering off and then being inadvertently given to another Brahmana, he ended up cursed to live as a lizard in a well. And so I remember when I first heard this story, I thought, man, that's really terrible. Like, what hope is there for me? Like, I make all sorts of mistakes, and those are the ones I know about, let alone the ones that I don't even know about. How could I possibly, I'm gonna end up as a lizard in a well or worse, because what is the hope here, But there is hope. Don't worry. So in the Nectar of Devotion, it's actually a quote from the first canto, but it's written so much more beautifully in here. So, first canto, 5th chapter, verse 17, wherein Sri Narada Muni advises Vyasadeva thus: even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, there will be no faults on his part. And in all circumstances, his position is secure. Even if by some bad association he falls down while executing his devotional service, or if he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he is not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in Varna and ashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. So there we see that King Riga, he was following his duties as to Varna and ashram, but not so much his devotional service. However, when he was a lizard in that well, he just kept thinking about Krishna, and ultimately got to see Krishna face to face, who saved him from that well. So I say, what hope is there? Well, because for us, we get to do devotional service. So it doesn't matter, that you don't have that hundreds of thousands of cows to give to every Brahmana you see, or, all kinds of gold and stuff like that. As long as you're doing devotional service, even if you fall down or you don't finish you die before you're able to finish your course of devotional service, you are still not at a loss. So I want to tell one more story. This is a story that Srila Prabhupada told told several of his disciples. So Srila Prabhupada had a disciple who he had made a sannyasi, and he was not, after a while, he wasn't following so strictly anymore. And he was, he was letting his hair grow out. He wasn't wearing a dhoti anymore. He wasn't following the principles, but he still thought, oh, yes, I can be a spiritual teacher. I can be a great spiritual leader. And Srila Prabhupada told him this story. So one day, there was a servant of a rich man, and he heard about this yogi who was standing in this cold river, and he was kind of offering up a wager that he could stay in the cold river in the winter overnight with no heat, no access to heat. And so the servant went back and told his master about this interesting yogi that's just hanging out in this cold river. And he said, yeah, he's saying he can stay there all night without any heat, and it's in the cold winter. And so the rich man he goes and he sees the yogi, and he decides, I'm going to take that bet. I'm going to take it. Yeah, he didn't think he could do it. So he takes the wager. He bets against the yogi, and him and his servant, they go home for the night. So the next morning, word comes that the yogi had stayed in the river all night, and that the king or the rich man had lost his bet. So they go. The rich man and his servant, they go back to the river, and sure enough, there's the yogi. He's still in the river, even though it had been very, very cold. And And so the rich man had lost his bet. However, one of his friends was there, the rich man's friend, and he said, look over there. You see, there's a light in that temple over there. It was a far off light. He said, oh, that yogi was using his mystic powers to take the heat from that light. And so, he cheated. You don't have to pay that bet. And so, of course, the rich man was like, yes, I've won. And he went home. And so he was very hungry. And so he told his servant, he said, please cook me some breakfast. And the servant said, yes, okay. So quite a bit of time had passed, and the rich man, he was very hungry, and he said to his servant, hey, where's my breakfast? I'm very hungry. And the servant said, don't worry, I'm cooking it. Like, it's just going to be a bit longer. Don't worry. And so the rich man's waiting, and some more time had passed, and the rich man's like, hey, what's going on? I'm starving here. Like, I'm waiting for my breakfast. And the servant said, no, it'll just be a few minutes. Don't worry, it's coming. And so the rich man waited some longer time, and finally he became exasperated, and he just walked in the kitchen, and he sees that his servant had rigged up this tiny little fire and this really high tripod thing, and the pot's hanging way up here, touching the ceiling, and the fire's way down here, and the food's not getting cooked at all. And the rich man says, what's the meaning of this? What are you doing? Where's my breakfast? This is ridiculous. And the servant said, well, just as you said that yogi could take heat from that light so far away in the temple, well, so I'm cooking this way. And then the rich man realized that his servant was dissatisfied with how he had basically cheated on that bet. And so he went back and he paid the yogi. And so Srila Prabhupada's disciples, after hearing the story, they were kind of like, okay, yeah, well, what's the meaning of this story? And he said, the meaning of this story is you can have all the right things, but if you're not using them properly, if you're not doing the process, then you're not going to get the result. So you can be chanting, but if you're not chanting properly and you're doing the rest of the process, you're not going to get the result. And so that result is love of Krishna and devotional service. And so with that, I'll end. And if there's any comments or questions, please. Yes, Lamanga.
This brings up a question for me, and I've had this question for a while, what really counts as devotional service? Because we hear about in the Bhagavatam how there's devotional service in the modes, devotional service in the mode of goodness, devotional service in the mode of passion, devotional service in the mode of ignorance. And at the same time, we also hear in Nectar of Devotion that real devotional service only begins on the Brahma platform,
right,
when you realize that you're not the body. Otherwise, it's mixed.
Yeah.
So, how much credit do you get from mixed devotional service?
Yeah. I mean, it's better than no credit. Right? You do get some credit. But as you do that mixed devotional service, you become purified. And so if you keep doing it, ultimately, your capacity to do pure devotional service will grow. So, and then also I forgot, of course, what is so what do we do in all of this? With all those stories, if we make an inadvertent mistake, we try to give a cow to a brahmana and then accidentally, without even knowing it, give it to another one. What do we do? And what's our yuga dharma? Who knows? Yeah. So that's what we do. Like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the holy names of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. So as long as we keep doing that, even if our devotional service is mixed, that is our hope is. So, yeah.
Bhakti, at least from my understanding, is
you know, you can practice pure devotional service on a very basic platform. Even if one's not like highly advanced, one can be if one is practicing serious sadhana bhakti, that's also considered pure devotional service. Hearing, chanting, remembering, 9 processes of bhakti are considered pure devotional service. So if you're doing them with the intention to please Krishna, anyabhilashita shunyam, jnanam karmanyunavritam, without any desire for jnana or karma, that's considered pure devotional service. Where, to the degree you're absorbed in that. But if you do that seriously, you get the result, which is the first 2 results of devotional service are, what is it? You should feel relief of misery and you should become detached.
Yeah.
So I think that, we're given pure devotional service, and all of our practices are pure devotional service. Chanting is pure devotional service. Hearing the Bhagavatam is pure devotional service. Worshiping the deity is pure devotional service. So those pure devotional services, they're affecting us. We may not be pure. We're still performing pure devotional service. Is my understanding, at least.
Okay. All right. Last comment.
In the Western world, it seems like the word servant has such a negative connotation, whereas in here we're talking about devotional servant and being a servant of Krishna and Prabhupada like that. And obviously we see it that it comes from love. The more that we do devotional service, the more that we are a servant of Krishna, we're experiencing a very, very loving feeling inside of us and we want to do more. But it's so opposite to the word servant in the Western world. So how would you?
Well, I mean, we all serve somebody, right? So you're serving your boss, you're serving your partner or spouse, you're serving the government. So why not serve Krishna, who is the end all of everything, everything that there is. And as far as, in Western world having a bad connotation, I mean, we're all serving. We can serve Krishna or we can serve ourselves. We serve ourselves, that's going to lead to more entanglement. We're going to be having birth after birth of old age, disease, misery. So why not serve Krishna? That's all I have, I guess. So, all right, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.